Hi, I'm Phil Kirschner. I'm a senior expert at McKinsey and Company. I sit at the intersection of our real estate and people practices and lead most of our thinking and client service around the future of the physical workplace, including hybrid and remote work and the situation we find ourselves in terms of office culture these days.
Hi, I'm Kim McHale. I'm the North America Experience Operations Lead for Atlassian. We oversee all of our offices in North America and all of our cultural programming for our employees, whether they're remote or near an office.
So our presentation today is called Hybrid Can Be Healthy, and the power really of purposeful presence, but also places. And it's predicated on the fact that a lot of leaders and people we read about in the press, while we're really excited and moving forward as a society for topics that we're discussing here at Culturati, like AI, there seems to be this gravity that's pulling us back into evaluating how the office and the ways we were working before were then. And like maybe we should be going back. All the news you hear about mandates and don't we go to the office and when. And we'd like to offer some thoughts about a way to be a little bit more productive in that conversation, using Atlassian as a specific example of the kind of work environment that we believe is optimal for the future, being one where you have full choice about whether or not to go into an office environment, but also continue to intentionally build places for particular purposes. As a very short history lesson, if you think the office that we left in the end of 2019, right before the pandemic, was a time where, sure, we were accustomed to working together, but we rarely were there all the time. We rarely ever asked our employees what they thought about those environments, much less did anything about it. And a lot of the ways that we were working weren't necessarily working for everybody. I think COVID has taught us quite a lot about how a lot of people may have felt excluded in those environments, not heard or not productive. And when we ripped the Band-Aid and brought everybody home early on in the pandemic, a lot of workers discovered that when they had the ability to create their own environment, have full agency over how they set it up, have more control over their time, not only did they like it better, more productive or perceived to be more productive for them, gave them greater work-life balance, and a lot of companies realized not all this work has to be done here. Shockingly, we didn't fail when all set into our homes. And from a McKinsey perspective, that prompted us to try to look for a different answer to the question that we get the most, which is like, how often should my employees be in the office? How do I get them back into the office? And trying to address both the better ways of working and the better places. On the better ways of working side, briefly, we've been leveraging what's called the Organizational Health Index, which may be our oldest and most distinctive asset for connecting how employees work, the behaviors that they see and experience around them at their organizations, to outcomes for the organization, to their individual experiences, and ultimately to business performance. We've been using this instrument for 20 years. We have several thousand companies who have gone through it. And we're really surprised to learn when studying fully remote organizations, those companies that have never had an office once, not just remote because of COVID, and in order to sustain that kind of environment, have really, really rigorous and prescriptive ways of working, ways of sharing information, leadership styles, how to measure performance, how to share with colleagues, how to learn from the outside. And we're really surprised to find that they outperform a lot of traditional companies on McKinsey's Organizational Health Index. So we said there has to be something to this, even for all the companies that are still largely in an office environment. Instead of hemming and hawing about the days and the inputs to work, we really should be learning from the companies that are the most accustomed to working in a fully distributed environment that can help us be, as I said, sort of healthier while we are being hybrid. We've also found that when you give someone a reason why they should be somewhere, that is actually more powerful for their perception of the output and the outcomes for the company than just giving them flexibility. And that is going to lead me to let Kim share a little bit. if the truly distributed, fully remote organizations can perform incredibly well, I think there's a world for the companies like Atlassian's who give employees choice but do continue to use the built environment in a new and different way. And we'd love Kim to share some of that story about their Austin office here.
So at Atlassian, we have something called Team Anywhere, which means that our 12,000 plus employees don't have any mandates on where they need to go. They can work from home, they can work from one of our 12 offices that we have globally, or from somewhere else entirely. So the physical office space is still a very important part of our strategy. We think of the office as a place where our employees can come to for connection, just to connect with work friends, with teammates, to connect with company culture. We want them to come into a branded space where they can feel like they're part of Atlassian and understand our values just by being there. And we also want to provide a place where people can just get stuff done, get their work done if they want to. So we built 150,000 square foot space in Austin that was purpose built for Team Anywhere. It's our first office in our portfolio that we built once we'd moved into Team Anywhere, which was a really exciting project. So throughout this building, we actually only have 88 traditional workstations, which sounds crazy to most people, but it's really a space built for connection and collaboration. Probably 75 to 80% of our visitors are actually from outside of Austin who come to that office. So we have teams coming in from all over the world to be together in person, to connect, to solve hard problems. And we actually have a concierge team in place to make that happen. So we have a hospitality model, right? So when you come in, we want you to feel like you're in a hotel. We want you to have an experience at our coffee bar where you're going to have a casual collision, hear about what's happening in the physical office space, maybe that week or that month, and then be able to go and be with your team to solve hard problems, make those social connections, and when you leave, feel that connection to Atlassian as a whole.
Yeah. It's not really an office.
No, yes.
That statistic, someone who runs in real estate circles every time
yes.
I say, there's 150,000 square feet and 88 desks, brokers, designers, everyone's like, that can't be right.
Right.
But no, it is. It's true. Mm-hmm. Built much more like an event center.
Yes.
And that leads to think really to the advice that I'm certainly giving to clients when we're thinking, how do I get people back? And the trap that we fall into is that most of us, and I am as guilty as anybody, pre-COVID weren't held to a standard where we had to really define the purpose of our office. Why should we go? What is the outcomes that this physical facility should create for the individual employees and for the company? And you'd say, oh, why do I have an office here in Austin? You say, because I have 500 employees in Austin, which was fine, but it's not great when someone in a lot of companies saying, oh, I want you to come more, and the employee says, for what? And what's really challenging, I see, is that a lot of companies now attempting to inspire employees to come back are using a lot of the same language, like come to collaborate, and the employees sitting there in their home saying, I've been collaborating perfectly fine for the last couple of years. So we have to look for a higher purpose, more authentic purpose, more specific purpose to that company. And there's some really great examples out there, but our challenge to sort of listeners and everyone involved in Culturati is to think about what should the purpose of your office be? And if you go back to talk about getting things done or connection, if you're holding yourself to that standard, what are ways that you should design differently, as you said, or activate the environment differently? Bringing in a hospitality team, a concierge team is not something that a lot of companies will leap for, but that's how you can create movement and make sure that the sort of software is always evolving in that place. I don't know if Atlassian does this officially, but as employees are leaving after their visit, what do you think that they would sort of report about what being there has done for them and done for their teams that maybe the offices before COVID wouldn't have?
Yeah, so we actually do know, which is great, because when we have teammates come together for a team gathering, which some people might think of as an offsite, we actually do send a survey afterwards, just a short one, just to see, did you meet the objective of connection? Do you feel more connected to your team? Do you feel more connected to Atlassian? And the answer resoundingly is yes. So we know based on this data that meeting together in person for time to collaborate or connect helps those feelings of connection for up to 2 months before it starts to decay. So we have that data, which is really exciting and just really reiterates why we're doing this.
Yeah, it's really excellent. So, as we said, I think the future workplace needs to be, by necessity, some version of this virtual first, remote first, but not placeless environment. The odds that any 2 people or 3 people, especially with larger teams, will be exactly where you think they are on any given day is pretty slim. And to make sure that we're not inadvertently excluding someone who isn't there or losing the ability to take kind of the written culture that is required to sustain these virtual first environments in terms of knowledge retrieval and again inclusion, we have to operate almost as if we're not going to be together, but then use purpose-built places to really push our business forward. And if you hold yourself to a standard like social capital and connection, as you said, challenge yourself. If everybody coming to my office were surveyed, even as an individual, did being here today help you learn something you didn't know, meet someone you didn't know, accomplish something you couldn't at home? And the answer is no. To think that it may not just be the design of the office. It has to be all the services, the amenities, the activations, and probably most critically, how leaders show up. Because if you want to create that environment, they are the new amenity, and hopefully orienting much more around purpose of place, hold the building accountable instead of just berating our employees for when they should or shouldn't be somewhere, will lead us into a better workplace experience and outcomes for all. This has been a really exciting conversation. We hope that this and the other sessions at Culturati this year are inspiring to others to help continue to solve really big problems. Kim, I really appreciate you being here to do this with me.
It's been great, Phil.
I have never forgotten about your office since you were nice enough to give me a tour 2 years ago. And hopefully, being able to share here gives other people that chance to come and see and experience,
yes,
and you'll know what we're talking about. Atlassian, you're wonderful hosts. And thank you again for doing this.
Thank you.